it's starting to wiggle. And what they lose control of food prices, even before, we don't even, in the United States, we don't have a supply problem. We have basically a currency problem. We have a demand problem because it's being sucked out of our country. If they lose control of supply and the Federal Reserve is debauchering the currency, is that we're going to have another worldwide Arab Spring on our hands, and then it's going to revert back to the United States.
Millions of Americans find themselves unprepared to handle the financial storm happening around them. Citizens from all over the country are stuck relying on unemployment and relief packages to feed their family, stay in their homes, instead of living life on their own terms. Take control of your financial destiny by learning how to dominate the stock market. Trading tools and trading courses. Trade Genius will teach you how to make money nearly every day trading the markets from the comfort of your own home. All you need is an internet connection to get started. Go to TradeGeniusAcademy.com and browse the online training programs. Learn to trade exchange-traded funds, ETFs, binary options, cryptocurrency, gold, and silver. Interact with Trade Genius community, fellow traders, and certified Trade Genius trades, alongside professionals who generate revenue for themselves in the stock market every single day. Live buy and sell alerts text to your phone, built for both new and experienced traders. TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Discounted bundles with their Freedom Specials. Use the promo code AUGUST for 40% off all non-bundled items. Click on the link in the description box below, and now on with the interview.
Good afternoon, everyone. Because of what we're seeing across the news landscape, gold and silver getting to all-time highs, runaway food inflation, China looking at 20% core food inflation just in the last 2 months. I don't think we could afford that in the United States. Seems whatever's happening with all this money printing is almost getting away from the monster that's created it. I'm here with Bob Kudla, TradeGeniusAcademy.com. As always, we wanted to roll through the last few weeks of events that dissect and kind of dovetail into your direct lives and how it's going to affect you moving forward. And if you have some of this information to see how the landscape might move out in the next few months or year, you can begin to protect yourself, because as we see these changes, you're going to need a little more money to operate in the future or protect already what you have as we get into these, I should say, greater inflationary times. So TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Bob, always a pleasure to talk with you to get some insight on how you think the world might be moving financially, and so much has been going on. Might I add, talking about food, I'm reading this incredibly crazy story about in Texas where people are kidnapping horses and then butchering them for food. And they're finding that it's the same group of people that seem to be abducting the horses and then butchering them for a food source. You know, this happened during the Great Depression, where they found that the woods in the forest were completely hunted out because people were bringing it all the way down to the size of people were looking to eat sparrows at that time. This is in the 1930s, when the population on our earth was 4 times lower than it is now. So when we're talking about food today and the price is getting out of control for a lot of people, this is the end result already here in Texas. Startling as it is, but you can see the direction it's going and how important keeping food prices under control is going to be. So Bob, welcome.
Yeah, well, thanks for that intro. Yeah, so I don't really know too much about the Texas thing. I mean, there's a lot of, indigenous population here that probably is not legal and working under the table, that probably lost their jobs and can't get food stamps. So it could be part of that as well. But, it's interesting because, Dave, when I started Trade Genius, I mean, we're coming up almost on 5 years now. You're one of the first guys we used to interview before we had this thing. The YouTube interviewing thing was a thing, and with other people. And I wrote a little, Amazon book called, How to Basically Survive and Thrive During the, basically this next Great Depression. I got to even bring the booklet out. And I said, there's 5 things that you're going to need to own. And those were, you need to own ag chem, you need to own food stocks, you need to own natural gas, you need to own silver, and you're going to need to own precious uranium. And so all of those now are hitting highs. You know, you're looking at mosaic, you're looking at natural gas is starting to break out, silver breaking out of its range, gold at all-time highs. Food stocks, because of the nature in which they do the futures contracts, have been hard, but the food companies, which are a better reflection of food and inflation, have been moving higher. You know, you got the Hormels of the world, and those companies are drifting up month over month. And I think the awareness factor hit, you know, probably in the last 30 to 60 days. Number one, with just these extraordinary measures they're taking with the reaction to the virus. And number two is, I think people are looking over their shoulders and saying, geez, if that dam goes in China, you know, it's gonna cause great irreparable harm. And it's bringing the Chinese back to the table. They're basically buying out the Western Hemisphere out of their grain because they know it's coming. And so the Federal Reserve now, with this second round of stimulus and going into the election, I think we're starting to see this today. You know, today's the 11th. The 11th this morning, inflation expectations went up. Market didn't like it, and you know, it's starting to wiggle. And what they lose control of food prices, even before, we don't even, in the United States, we don't have a supply problem. We have a, you know, basically a currency problem. We have a demand problem because it's being sucked out of our country. If they lose control of supply and the Federal Reserve is debauchering the currency, is that we're going to have another worldwide Arab Spring on our hands, and then it's going to revert back to the United States. So I just tell people, this is how you're going to protect yourself. You know, we're just peons. You know, we're the pimple riding on the elephant here, and so we just have to be able to proact to get in front of this. But I think this engine now is too far gone. Grand Solar Minimum, only the crazies are still talking about global warming. Now it's coming in full effect. So people can't argue with that anymore. You're starting to see it now affect a lot of the grain belts. And then yesterday we had that derecho wind. Basically, it could not lined up any more perfectly to hit the most productive corn region in the world for over 700 miles of straight line winds right through the corn belt. And that's going to have and not just that, it knocked down a lot of the food storage, the silage towers that when they bring this food off the ground, they have no place to put it. So it's going to, you know, it's going to likely, a good percentage, it's going to spoil unless they can get it through the supply chain quickly. So, you know, we're really at a tipping point here. And if the politics go crazy in this country, then I think 2021 will be one for the record books, even though 2020 has been pretty stellar so far.
And then we need to add the locusts that should be here probably in the first week of September. I saw a couple locusts out here in Tennessee yesterday when I was out of my land. I'm living in a camper van right now, and I'm working, living in here, and then I'm trying to go out to my land daily to try to make improvements out there and, you know, get the greenhouses ready to put in so we'll be able to grow year round in the winter. I saw 2 locusts out there yesterday, and the locusts are coming up from Mexico. They're expected to be here at the height of maturation for the U.S. crops. That's a terrible thing that they got sideline wind like that, because you have to realize between 60 and 80 mile an hour winds and 5-foot tall corn crops with a dense leaf, that's just a leverage push right over, and it's going to, you know, complete loss. Once those things are snapped, they're not coming back. But then add into that on top of what the locusts would be, what kind of damage they would do, because we can't spray our crops heavily enough to be able to even mitigate that. And these swarms are vast. And, it, you know, with the nature's cue, that'll be their last time to feed and breed before the winter sets in. So the locusts are going to be in an urgency of extreme. They're going to intake as much green vegetative matter as they can to do what nature does. It's about survival. And we're the same way too as human species. You know, we've seen these cycles come and go. And I'm still so surprised that with all the politics going on and with all the crop losses and with all these things about food and food inflation and China losing its production for the year, why nobody's really talking about food across the greater media. Maybe 1 out of 20 articles might reference something about food, but it being such the most important part of our civilization to keep our civilization moving, I just can't believe there's not more focus on getting the individual citizen ready. You know, Bob and I are here talking about you as a person getting your individual finances ready, protecting whatever you have in terms of wealth assets ready on an individual basis. Why isn't the mainstream media or corporate media talking about getting you as the individual ready on your food growing individual protection basis? That's what my Adapt 2030s channel is about. And Bob and I have been talking for years about, you need to grow your own food. Why are we the ones out here in the voices in the wilderness going, grow your own food, grow your own food? And across the planet, it's the biggest losses, I think, in 100 years that we're experiencing this year. Yet nobody wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole. I'm just perplexed, Bob. I just don't get it still.
Oh, well, it makes perfect sense. It's not part of the political agenda. So they got to wrap this COVID thing up first, and get everybody to accede to ruining their privacy for their health. And the goal is to get Biden elected, to get the world working together again as some sort of harmonious religious cult. And then when it's time for you to not be able to eat food, they're going to go tell you that there's going to be food shortages and you're going to be rationed. So, the people can only be scared of too many things at one time. They're just going to keep coming at you with something different each and every time. And that's going to be next. But, I'm here to tell you is that, it doesn't take much to protect yourself. Look, protect yourself a year out. You get yourself a couple bags of rice. I would absolutely tell you to figure a way to get at least a bench freezer or one of those low freezers, and bag up flour and basically pre-bag your making bread so you have it. Pasta is easy to store, and make sure that you're a year out on this stuff, and then just eat through it, because these things are going to come in spot shortage waves, and you don't want to be the one running to the grocery store needing something when it's not available. So you get yourself your top ramen, you get yourself your pad thai noodles, you get yourself your rice, get yourself flour. Freeze your flour. Don't store it, because the bugs will figure a way to get in there, even if you throw CO2 in there and close it up. Freezing it though, it'd be good to go for a couple of years. And then I just take mine and just bag it for the bread machine. What I did this weekend, I moved a ton and a half of topsoil from the front of my house to my backyard and put in another 40 square foot bed. So I could, is that right? 48 square foot bed, so that I can add to my capabilities. I just pulled potatoes out. I'm lucky. I live in Southern California. I can grow almost anything at any time. So not too many people can harvest their potatoes in July, but I did. And I'm getting ready for the fall crops. And, you just have to be smart about it. And what's going to be weird with meat prices is that they're actually going to firstly fall before they go higher, because they'll when they run out of grain, they'll over butcher, and then we'll run into a shortage. This happened a couple of years ago, and as the price of beef was falling and pork was falling, I bought everything I could. And then when it shot up in price, when bacon went to $18 or $19 a pound, I was eating bacon out of the freezer that I got on sale for $3.99 a pound. And so you just got to be smart about these things. And even if you have an apartment, you can grow microgreens in your windows. There's all kinds of tricks. So that's what I'm doing. And from the trading side, from the Trade Genius side, is that there are things you can buy. There's food stocks. There's definitely MOS. Mosaic for ag chem is going to be huge. It already rocketed. You want to buy natural gas. They're going to need natural gas to make fertilizer. People don't realize that, because they convert natural gas into fertilizer. You're going to see a push in uranium, because they're realizing that solar and wind is not going to be enough for the Green New Deal nuts, and they're going to have to ramp uranium production in the U.S. So those prices are going to go higher, and then like I said, gold and silver, you just need that for currency debasement. And of course, we didn't mention you need to have the old digital currency standby Bitcoin, which is now starting to break out from its halving. And, you can actually buy GBTC if you don't want to go ahead and open up a crypto account. You can just buy GBTC, and you'll get essentially the same effect for Bitcoin. And my understanding is that trust is going to expand into some other coins too. So GBTC is going to become a very robust digital asset that you can trade through the stock market.
And I've been talking with Bob Kudla from TradeGeniusAcademy.com. If you'd like more information about gold, silver trading, some of the groups that are talking and involved with cryptocurrency, you can reach out to Bob directly, TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Click the contact button and you can start your conversation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.